What do you not need for a modified standard diploma? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. What do we not have to earn then? Verified credits, right? You're just looking at standard credits and meeting the literacy and numeracy requirement for modified standard. Verified credits are only needed for the standard and advanced studies diploma, all right? Verified credits equal tests. Standard credits equal seat time, okay? Super important for the rest of what we're going to talk about. This just shows you some of the changes that I mentioned, the CTE credential as well as the footnotes that I mentioned for the standard diploma. The website has all these hyperlinked and they're really easy to see. I'll show you it online after we finish. This is actually written in Hebrew. Just want to share it with you guys. Just a joke. You can't even tell. It's actually a listing of one page of all the career and technical education experiences that we offer across the state. Many school divisions have a document that looks like this that is multiple pages that allows for schools and school divisions to opt into menu options for what they offer for students for career and technical education. And as I said, there are so many varieties out there. The state also offers some financial assistance. Many of the tests that are connected to career and technical education courses that allow students to earn that credential cost money. That ranges from about $5 to some of the tests cost $500 depending on the certification that comes with that. The state offers numerous incentive programs that can help divisions and parents access funds for students to take those courses. And I'll share with you the name of a gentleman at the department who, if you call him, will give you all the information you want on that. All right, let's get rolling. So just to keep in mind too, this is going to be a lot of information coming at you. So feel free to pop a hand up and let me know if you need to stop, ask a clarification question as we go through. You're not going to mess me up, all right? Standard diploma credit accommodations for students with disabilities. Credit accommodations are for what diploma? Standard. Are they for the advanced studies diploma? Are they for the modified standard diploma? Who are they for? Students with, that includes students with IEPs and 504s. You guys are awesome. All right. Credit accommodations provide pathways for students that up until now had difficulty accessing all of the requirements for the standard diploma. We did not create anything new. That sounds like it should be on a t-shirt for the department, right? Nothing new here, folks. This is all stuff that has been around. So you're going to get a whole lot of information that really has some flexibility that we already had. What we did is we just kind of went in and widened it a little bit for our kids with disabilities. The reason that we did that is very purposeful. The standard diploma, as it's known in Virginia, is supposed to prepare students for what? College and career readiness, right? The standard diploma is like it's like a bill. We don't want that bill to lose value for our students with disabilities, right? We still want employers, community colleges, four-year universities, two-year universities to see that that has the weight behind it. All right, we're not reducing the validity of the standard diploma. We're simply allowing some flexibility around some of our students. The content remains the same. Now, being a former special education teacher, I am all about visuals. So I want you to think about me. We're at the beach. This is even more poetic. We're going to think about buckets today. I'm going to do a little bucket tutorial for you, and you're going to think about all the information I've given you as fitting into buckets. These are the buckets that comprise the credit accommodations, the use of substitute tests, the use of the VMAS, which began this school year, the use of locally awarded verified credits, and then flexibility and instruction and coursework offerings. The VMAS is the Virginia Modified Achievement Standards Test, okay? I'm also going to share some documentation and some information for some of our returning students, some of our kids who have already left us with something less than a standard diploma, okay? Let's get started. Our first bucket is substitute tests. Substitute tests have been around for a long time. The Board of Education keeps a list of them. These are approved tests that can serve to earn students verified credits that are not the SOL tests. Students do not have to take an SOL test to earn a verified credit if they have a substitute test that can earn the same credit. There's a whole list of them. They've been around since the 1990s, at least they may be around earlier than that, but that's as far back as I went. Substitute tests allow students for flexibility to take assessments that look different, presented in different ways, and offer some flexibility. The best example of this for our students with disabilities has been the work keys assessment. Many of our kids take work keys and they don't take the writing SOL and they still earn their verified credit. All right, does that make sense? Substitute tests, just the same as SOL. If passed, they give a student a verified credit. I've included the hyperlink for the listing of current substitute tests for verified credit. And just to note that from time to time the board does approve new assessments to add to this list. So the substitute test for a writing test, one of the examples that our students with disabilities often take is the work keys assessment. And what it does is it looks a little bit different from the writing SOL. It kind of gives you a real world lens on writing. It has things like resume skills. It's presented in kind of a typographical block format. It allows students to kind of break up the content. They can take the work keys assessment and earn a verified credit, just as if they'd taken the writing SOL. That's just one example. There are substitute tests for reading, math, social studies, history, science. Yes, ma'am.
How do they qualify to be able to take that test? Is that in their IEP? Is that something
All students with and without disabilities are qualified to take a substitute test assessment. They just have to work with their classroom teacher and work with their local division policy on how that purpose actually gets rolled out. Substitute tests are available for all students. Now, you might be asking, that's great, Sam. What'd you really do for us, though? Substitute tests have been around. They continue to be around. How'd you really help out students with disabilities? There is a little known caveat to this. The board approves substitute tests after they go through a specific process. Part of that process is the local school division really has to kind of start that process, right? They look at maybe a group of their kids that are really struggling to make an assessment. They say, well, we heard about this new substitute assessment that came out that is really beneficial for kids in the area of algebra and mathematics. How do we get that substitute test approved? Well, it's not just a matter of writing an email to the superintendent and getting that approved. You have to go through a really rigorous system of that, which includes doing some population studies within your division, giving it to a small sample population of kids, seeing how they do, seeing what those scores do, and you almost have to present it to the board and say, this is what our experience has been, this is where we see value in it. How many school divisions do you think have the time, the resources to do that? You can imagine that this doesn't happen very often, right? What Credit Accommodations has done is it allowed the Virginia Department of Education, specifically within special education, really the onus to go and work with a school division. So often because of the work that we do, we're exposed to new innovative assessments that are out there. What we can do now is we can take those new innovative assessments, we can partner with local divisions, and we can ease that process for them. We do the work. We provide the resources, the allocation, the funding, really that push to bring those new assessments forward. And I can tell you that given a lot of the research that's out there, we have many different options that are now going to be able to be considered for substitute tests. Yes, ma'am? We is the Virginia Department of Education and the local school division. So we can partner with them and really kind of give them a guiding, helping hand in getting more of these assessments on the list. That's really the push for the substitute assessments part of Credit Accommodations. It's really a forward-thinking thing of getting more appropriate assessments on that list. And for us, that means better quality, innovative assessments for our students with disabilities added to that menu that kids can take to earn verified credit. VMAS, the Virginia Modified Achievement Standards Test. The VMAS. We love the VMAS. Do you know why we love the VMAS? It's flexible. It's awesome. Great assessment made up by Virginia educators, parents, teachers. We did a lot of work to get the VMAS up and ready thanks to a nice grant from the U.S. Department of Education. Then we had our ESEA waiver flexibility submitted. They told us what? You can't have the VMAS anymore. Yeah, so we lost the VMAS. But the good thing about Credit Accommodations is that we're able to utilize that test specifically for credit accommodations. All right? So I want you to think about this. When students take an SOL test, they have to pass it to earn a verified credit, right? What's that passing score? 400. Now, I probably should have told you this in the beginning. When we started looking into credit accommodations, the first thing we did was look at the kiddos who had gotten the modified standard diploma across Virginia. All right, think about this. We have over 161,000 students with disabilities. Only about 1,800 a year get the modified standard diploma. That's it. 1,800 students a year, that's what we're talking about. You can look at those kids though, and you can almost draw a dividing line about halfway through. The upper half of that group can easily earn a standard of credit because they're one verified test short. All right, these are kids who have taken the Algebra 1 assessment 8 times. 9 times. They've scored 375, 389, 399. We had one child who I think should earn a Congressional Medal of Honor, took the test 14 times. Highest score, 399. God bless him, right? Whew, it just gives me little chills to think about that. These kids are so close to earning that SOL test, that score, that one thing that's keeping them from getting a standard diploma, right? And we'll talk about locally awarded verified credits, which really help out the kids who score between 375 and 399, which is a huge population of those 1,800 kids. But some of our other kids, they never even make it to 375, do they? They take it over and over again, and that's just not happening. The VMAST is the emergency parachute of credit accommodations. For students who are earning 374 or less on their SOL test, they can utilize the VMAST to earn verified credit. And that started this school year. So this school year, the VMAST assessments are no longer part of our accountability system. That means you're not going to have kids going through participation criteria and all that stuff like we did. However, for end of course reading and Algebra 1, students who have met the participation criteria, they still have to be the kind of kids the VMAST was designed for, which includes students with IEPs. This is one that 504 kids cannot take advantage of because they are not the students the VMAST was designed for, right? We're still going to use the test the way it was designed. They can use VMAST scores for end of course reading in Algebra 1 to earn that verified credit. These are the criteria they need to meet. They need to pass the high school course. They need to earn that what? That standard credit, right? Because we need to know they got that content. They were there. They score 374 or below after taking the SOL test at least twice. Sam, why do they have to take the SOL test at least twice? That goes back to making sure the standard diploma is valid. It's making sure that students have every opportunity to take the SOL assessment, receive remediation, get that information. We're giving them opportunity, but we're not dragging them into 14 pass attempts. They have to meet all of those eligibility requirements, right? They have to still be a student that the VMAST was designed for. Those are the criteria that then allow them to sit for the VMAST. They pass the VMAST, they earn the verified credit, they're done. Little wrap up. Substitute assessments are available for all students. The difference is the DOE can help LEAs in getting more assessments on that list for board approval. The VMAST beginning this school year can be used for algebra and end of course reading for students that the test was designed for if they score 374 or below on their SOL test. All right, I'm going to speed up because we're getting close, so hang on. Buckle your seatbelts. Locally awarded verified credits have always been around for all students in the area of history, social science, and science. The student has to pass the high school course, earn credit. They have to score within 375 to 399 range, right? We talked about our kids, where they score. VMAST helps 374 and below. LAVC helps these kids that are super, super close. They have to demonstrate achievement in the academic content through an appeal process at the local level. Welcome to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Here's some flexibility for your local agencies, all right? Double check your local school division's policy on the awarding of locally awarded verified credits. Many school divisions have a policy for what that looks like for them. It could be everything from you have to get a teacher signature, you have to complete a small project, you have to demonstrate that content through a different way. It looks different in all 132 school divisions. Some don't even have a policy. If you meet that, the board signs off on that, you're good to go. You have to make sure you do your due diligence in checking with your local division on that, right? Locally awarded verified credits, always been available. What's the difference? For students with disabilities, they can now use locally awarded verified credits in reading, writing, and mathematics as well. All right? Huge help. Like I said, out of those 1,800 kids, half of them right there off the list onto a standard diploma. We have set no maximum number of allowed locally awarded verified credits. Hypothetically, a kid could get a locally awarded verified credit for all of their content areas. Are a lot of our students going to need that? No. Trust me, I've looked at these kids, I don't see their faces, but I see their data points. They often only need it in one content area. That's how close they are to earning a standard diploma. Local school divisions have to ensure that the flexibility for offering this in reading, writing, and mathematics is only for eligible students with disabilities. Your regular kiddos, they can still get locally awarded verified credits, but only in history, social science, and science. They cannot get reading, writing, and mathematics because they are not kids that the credit accommodations were designed for. All right? Does that make sense? Locally awarded verified credits have always been available, will continue to be available in the way that they were designed. For our students with disabilities who are found eligible, they can be used in reading, writing, and mathematics. All right, a couple of things to remember. Only scaled scores from the SOL test can be used to meet the criteria for locally awarded verified credits. They have to take the test at least twice. They have to score between 375 and 399. Do not call me and ask me if a substitute assessment or a score from another assessment can be used. Locally awarded verified credits are not applicable to the modified standard diploma either. You'd be surprised at how many questions we've gotten on that. Locally awarded verified credits for reading, writing, and mathematics are only for students with disabilities who are eligible in pursuing a standard diploma. Locally awarded verified credits. What's the difference, Sam? Nothing has changed, but for our eligible students with disabilities that include students with 504s and IEPs, they can now receive a locally awarded verified credit in reading, writing, and mathematics. All right, the last bucket we're going to talk about is coursework and instruction flexibility. This slide condenses all of those nasty little graphs that are on the department website into one fell swoop. These are all the requirements in the main content areas for kids to earn a standard diploma, right? Cheat sheet, English, they need 4 standard credits. That's 4 classes. They need 1 verified credit each in reading and writing. Math, 3 standard credits, a verified credit. For a lot of our students, that's Algebra 1 right there. Science, 3 standard credits in 2 disciplines, 1 verified. History, social science, 3 standard, and you have the listing right there, and they have to have 1 verified credit, all right? What's the flexibility? For students with disabilities, with the IEPs and 504, this is the flexibility. We have always had the ability for school divisions to split courses for all students. Taking Algebra 1, and instead of teaching it in 1 year, they can split it across 2 years, or perhaps instead of 1 semester, spread it across 2 semesters. A student would earn an elective credit for Part 1, and they would earn a standard credit for Part 2, right? Because they're taking that course, they earn a standard credit. But that Part 1 would count as an elective credit, all right? Now think about this. Think about a kid who's struggling, say, in mathematics, and they're really having a hard time at earning those standard credits. We know from our previous slide that they need 3 standard credits and a verified credit. Now think if they have to start splitting their courses, right? The way it was designed previously. They do Algebra 1, they split that. They get an elective credit and a standard credit. That gives them 1 standard credit, right? That's a year lost. The next year they do the same for geometry. They get another standard credit. That's 2 years and 2 standard credits. They've still got another year, right? Think about that through time. That's going to take a lot of time, right? If a student has to split all those courses up. They're still, maybe they earn the verified credit in Algebra 1. They've already checked that list, but the time that it's going to take them to accrue those standard credits, splitting that course the way they need it to have more time to get that content, that can take a lot of our kids past their senior year, right? The flexibility for standard, for instruction and coursework allows students with disability to earn a standard credit for each part. All right, look at this example I have on the bottom. A student with a disability who's deemed eligible, they take Algebra 1 Part 1, earn a standard credit. They take Algebra 1 Part 2 and they earn a standard credit. They have 2 standard credits. They sit and take the assessment. That's a verified credit. They only need 1 more standard credit and then they're done with math. All right? A student without a disability can do the same thing, but they do not have credit accommodations, so they would earn an elective credit for Part 1 and a standard credit for Part 2. There are plenty of kids out there with and without disabilities that need Algebra 1 broken across time. It's a lot of content for a lot of our kids. There is no need to create a special setting or to put all the kids with disabilities in one Algebra 1 course where it's split. This flexibility has always existed. I'm going to give you a footnote to this though. Many of our divisions don't need this flexibility. They have good algebra teachers that can work with their students with disabilities and they earn that standard credit and they move on. This should not be something that all of a sudden is used rampantly throughout the state because we have this flexibility, right? And so you say, well, that's great, Sam, but what are you going to do? We have built this into our federal program monitoring procedures so that we're double checking that school divisions, 1, really understand the use of credit accommodations, and 2, that the placement and programming for students with disabilities is still staying true to the integrity and the needs of that student on an individual level. This is flexibility for a very small number of students. Like I said, out of that 1,800, there was a very small number that really had an issue with earning standard credits. Predominantly, the verified credit has served as the barrier to earning a standard diploma. There's also an additional flexibility within economics and personal finance. This is a really great little example here that kind of given folks. This is one of Marianne. If you guys are familiar with my transition specialist, Marianne Moore, this is one of her favorites. This is like a triple dip right here. So a student takes the new economics and personal finance course, right? They do that and they pass all of their history requirements. they can now earn something additional with this. The workplace readiness skills have been input into this economics and personal finance course. So it kind of is like economics and personal finance on steroids. It's got extra workplace skills. A student can take that course, then they can sit for the workplace readiness skills assessment. They can earn a CTE for that if they pass it. So they take this one course, they can earn 3 things they need. They have earned their requirement for economics and personal finance, they've gotten their industry credential, and they've paired it with their history social science. This is a great example that many of our kids with disabilities already take advantage of, but just wanted to point out for you guys. There's also a SOUPS memo that spells this out if you need some paperwork too, and I've hyperlinked that for you. So, what's the flexibility with instruction? A student has to meet the criteria, has to be deemed eligible for credit accommodations, and they can have 2-part courses that contain a standard credit each reflected for them. They get more bang for their buck out of those half courses. They also have the added kind of course on steroids, personal finance, with the workplace readiness skills assessment. Now, it wouldn't be a DOE presentation if I didn't talk about some documentation. You guys know this is my favorite part. All I need now is a graph. Each IEP team and 504 committee has to determine where to utilize credit accommodations. Credit accommodations should only be used for students that require them, which is a very small number, right? Out of the 1,800 kids going for the modified standard, credit accommodations should not be used for everybody in the state of Virginia. They do not need them. All right? They have to decide this on a subject-by-subject basis. As I said, many of our students were only struggling in one subject or content area. Like I said, Algebra 1 predominantly for those 1,800 kids was a huge barrier within that verified credit. The IEP team is the one who really determines the eligibility of that student, how credit accommodations is best utilized for that specific case, and they are charged with documenting those determinations. As always, we've given some help. We have a sample eligibility form, as well as this information has been added to our sample transition IEP online. So it's a really great tool to share with parents if they're wanting to get prepared for their IEP meetings and looking for questions they might have, looking to see if credit accommodations are something that can be utilized by their students. I'll be completely frank with you guys. I spent the majority of my summer with many of my staff touring around the state, pulling people and talking to them in depth about credit accommodations. Surprisingly, there are still people out there with questions. Many of them work in local school divisions. We are really trying our best as well to communicate with parent groups, advocacy organizations as well, to make sure that parents are informed, so they're bringing these options to the table. I wish I could stand in front of you and say that school divisions are completely prepared for this and they can really do a lot of the legwork, and we're working on making that a greater truth. But talking to parents about the use of credit accommodations, I think, will really make that work move forward a little bit faster. We also provide school divisions with some tools. Many of our school divisions, John mentioned the movement towards a statewide IEP. Many of our school divisions have contract with IEP vendors, Easy IEP, IEP Online. We've also worked with them to add this information into those formats so that special education teachers are going through that process. Case managers are looking at those questions. Just some rules for my divisions to let them know that you can change how this looks, but all of those criteria have to be in effect, and a parent has to be notified of that information. And the qualifications for a 504 committee as well, because it does look a little bit different for those parents and families. A couple of reminders: credit accommodations are only available to students with disabilities who are found eligible by their IEP teams. Informed written consent of the parent or age of majority student is required for the use of credit accommodations. And just a reminder to our 504 folks, you guys will remember that consent is not necessary for a 504 plan, but it is for credit accommodations, so that supersedes. So 504 plans that include credit accommodations do need to have consent. That's a little bit of a difference. Just a couple of notes about returning students. This has been one thing that I think the divisions have done a really nice job with, is that they have pushed out a lot of information to students that have already left their division. You guys will know, because you're informed, is that students through the age of 21 who have left school with something less than a standard diploma, that means they've left school with nothing, they've left school with a modified standard diploma, an IEP diploma, or a cert of completion, or whatever they call those things. They can come back and utilize services, and we encourage our folks to reach out to offer things to students. CTE, like I said, has been a big draw for many students. But out of those 1,800 kids that I looked at the data of, many of them had left school. So we had school divisions reach out to them and bring them back, many of them for just one day to kind of sign and go through some paperwork, and they left that same day with a standard diploma. How awesome is that for the kid that took the Algebra 1 assessment 14 times and scored 399? A couple signatures, you're done. Makes a big difference. So just keep in mind that this isn't just for students who are currently in high school. We can also utilize this for our students who left us and had that, that returning student eligibility that we've always been able to work with. How these students are contacted has been a local decision. We've had many folks who have worked with their PRCs, with their local CACs. We've even had letters go out to all students that have left the division. So like I said, our folks have really, I think, tried to do as best they can with this, but it always helps to talk to parents and really drive home the fact that this is super useful and really can only take a very small amount of your time. Some resources. I'm going to show you a couple things online, but here are the hyperlinks that you'll have access to. I've also taken it upon myself to list out actual people and their direct phone numbers. They all know this is on there, I promise. But just a note, Mary Ann Moore works for me. She is our secondary transition specialist. Many of you, I'm sure, have had contact with Mary Ann. She is more than happy to answer any questions, to talk with you, to talk with parents. So please feel free to reach out to her. She and my FPP APR coordinator, Jeff Finesty, are the one who's traveled with me around the state. Really great people to talk to. Joe Wharf is the guy I was mentioning about CTE. If you have any questions about career technical education, the listing are available. Joe also traveled with us around the state. He's kind of our head guidance counselor. He's a wealth of information. If you ever need to contact him, please do. He's great, has a lot of information about flexibility, and really has a good eye for some of our programs and supports for students with disability. The SOL and Testing Assessment Office, also if you have any questions about things like the VMAST or SOL test questions, is a great place to reach out to. These are all of our instructional folks that traveled around with us too. Michael Bowling is in mathematics, Erica Rhodes is science, Tracy Robertson is English, and then Christania Brown is history, social science. These folks all have obviously a ton of background in their instructional areas, but they also have some really creative ways of helping not just parents, but also school divisions and thinking about some instructional offerings that can be really beneficial for students with disabilities. They're kind of those experts behind the curtain with those footnotes. So please feel free to reach out to contact them. They also have some really great resources and information about enrichment activities for students with disabilities. So real quick, before I open it up to questions, because I know we have a couple minutes, I just want to show you the website where we house everything related to credit accommodations. We do not put it kind of hidden in a bunch of different places. This is our home page. You can see there is Dr. Staples right there. On the right-hand side, you'll see quick links. You want to go to graduation requirements, and then right where my little pointer is here, you'll see credit accommodations. And that has all of the information that we talked about right at the top, kind of a quick dirty reference guide. Then you have the comparison between the standard and the modified standard diploma. But here's where the really good stuff is at the bottom. We have all of the resources. You'll see all of the, we have an FAQ document, just like a really simple kind of thing you could share with parents or kind of to give yourself a little background. We have some and I'm sorry, this is horrible to read. But we have a little video right here. If you want to listen to Jeff, Mary Ann, and I just lull you to sleep, you can play that. We have some pretty significant guidance. That's kind of lengthy, but it goes by hyperpoint. So if you have a question about instruction, you can scroll down to the instruction site and look at that. And then we also have all of the SUS memo that mentioned credit accommodations, which is really important if you're looking for students to take the VMAST. But we also have students who take the VSEP, the Virginia Substitute Evaluation Program. You guys know the VSEP is the same as the SOL test, right? There is no difference between the VSEP. So we've put up the VSEP cut scores that students can use for locally awarded verified credits too. So when you think VSEP, you think SOL, because that's, you know, for a very small number of students that have trouble accessing the design of the SOL test. But those are comparable assessments. There's nothing different about our students who take the VSEP than the SOL test. I don't know, I'm throwing a lot of like V's out at you, but if you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm going to stop there because I know we're getting kind of close on time. I can take some questions, and then I will also stick around for a little bit if you'd like to come up and talk to me.